Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here today, and I'm really excited to share this with the NarraScope community, how we made a story-driven puzzle game for a massive multinational. What that massive multinational is will be revealed. You'll piece it together as we go through. Don't worry. So my name is Adam Clare. I'm the lead game designer at Wero, and what I want to share with you today is a little bit about us. So you have some context around what the client wanted for this particular game, and I'll tell you about the game, and then I'll tell you what we learned through running and making this game that I want to share with all of you. So, very quickly, first about Wero, we are the philosophical gaming company. We try to make games that are really out there, get people thinking in new and different ways, because that's what we care about. We want to ensure that we are using the right technology to deliver the right challenge to players and making sure that those players can find success in what they're doing. And we don't like to repeat ourselves. So every game we do is really bespoke and unique. Which brings us to the sort of games we make. So we've done a lot of physical escape games, and we do a lot of digital games as well. And we put those skills together whenever we get contacted by a client saying we want to make an escape game, we want to have a team building exercise, we want to have a promotional game, we want to, whatever it is, we like to really cater towards the challenges and puzzles that are best for them and what they want to think about. And that comes down to their learning and development goals. So we focus on leadership, teamwork, and really trying to get people to explore juicy challenges. Yeah, and they could solve those challenges through a mixture of different techniques. So some people really like doing logic challenges, some people really like doing word challenges, whatever they happen to be. We like to give a diversity of those to our clients so that everyone on the team can contribute their intelligence and their wisdom to ensure that the team is successful. So that's what we do. We really like to share that, our sort of a perspective with people because we like making games. And if the game is interesting to us, we think it'll be interesting to the client and vice versa. So the brief we were given for this particular game I want to share with you today well, it was a big brief, but I'll sum it up for you. It was really the ability to deliver a unique product for them. They didn't want to have anything that was already used. They wanted to have something very unique. They wanted this to work at a very, very large scale. So most escape rooms are, anywhere between 5 to 15 people usually. Even 15 is a lot. And they wanted like 100 players at a time. And they wanted to run this in 3 different countries. Uh, all the hemispheres they wanted to run it in, and they wanted to be able to run this without us. And we actually are cool with that. Some service providers aren't, but we think it's really important that our clients are able to do this without us having to baby step them through everything. Of course, we were there to help. We always are, but we like it when they're more autonomous and able to do things of their own. So, of course, part of the brief was to ensure that it's accessible to everybody, that it's inclusive, it's not focused on just one cultural group from one geographic location. It was a mixture of people from all over the world who played this game and all different backgrounds. And the one common thing was they spoke English, which was handy for us because that's what we speak. And it saved us having to worry about localization because we knew that everyone would speak English. So it made it a bit easier. Oh yeah, they wanted a play time of 1.5 to 3 hours, and they wanted to leverage their built-in systems, not a provider system. That's key, right? So we saw this brief. We thought, yeah, we could do this. So we proposed to them this solution. And you can see these are some of the artifacts from the game already. So what we wanted to do was we proposed a online game with similar challenges to an escape game. Again, going back to where we come from, which really, as you know, it's an alternate reality game. That's what we are ultimately pitching. Do we call it alternate reality game? No. Because what we find with some clients is some people might know it on the client team, some people don't. So just to save confusion, we just say, hey, it's like an online escape game. And that seems to resonate with people better than alternate reality game. But that's what we were sort of pitching. We had this premise that a friendly AI that's trying to save the world, but through modifying our food sources, that's how it was going to save the world. And we, again, using our tried and trusted true method, we wanted to have a mixture of logical, entertaining, and moral challenges. And I gotta say, the entertaining aspect here is really key because when you're dealing with something as crucial as international food system, international food supply, things get real serious really fast. And because climate change is happening and it's happening really fast and it can't be ignored, that stresses a lot of people out. And we knew that if we were to really go into the real problems around climate change and really in depth, that people would get really, really sad. And we didn't want them to be really sad. So we added in some entertaining challenges there as well. But at the core, we were talking about global food supply issues. And all of the suggestions that we created were actually based off of real incidences in the world when it came to problems that we're having to address with world food supplies. So the game, we called it The Hunger Theorist. And we started the game off with a quick video to get everybody up to speed on how it functions. So here it is.
Humans, you really had it all. You think you still do. You don't. You multiplied and modified. You harvested and hoarded, thinking you couldn't have too much. But you can. And now, you've got some serious issues. So you invented machines. Smart machines to design even better machines, hoping that would save you. I'm trying hard, but you just won't let me. So I'm getting better and stronger, and you're just going to have to do what I say. And soon, my name will strike fear into your puny human hearts. My name is Windows 2030, the Super Intelligence Edition. Just kidding. There's no evil super intelligence, but that bit never gets old. But we do have some serious business to take care of. As you know, in 2030, we have 8.5 billion humans roaming around and 3 billion malnourished or worse. Global hunger is rampant. We produce enough crops, livestock, and food products to feed everyone, but we don't. Personally, I don't understand how we could let it get so bad, but at least we have artificial intelligence to fix the problem, called Fuller AI. It has autonomous delivery fleets and fast-paced distribution centers, robotic farms, and optimized supply chains. It has all the tools, but it's malfunctioning. Why? Well, maybe artificial intelligence needs help making good decisions. Maybe it needs a little bit more training. So that's where you come in. I thought you aspirers, you saved the world a couple years ago, and I asked Microsoft if I could have a few hundred of you to throw at this issue. So here we are. Get it?
So there you have it. Now you know the company, now you know the time setting, and now you know the challenge. So, as a quick recap, this game is set in the year 2030. And an AI, known as the Fuller AI, is trying to solve global food supplies, and it has access to supply chains, everything that a massive multinational would have access to in order to find success. It has no idea really what humans eat. It's an AI. It's just told this is what's consumed. It's not particularly smart because it's artificial intelligence, not actual intelligence. And lastly, it has no idea how to actually do things. So, well, it can do things, but it doesn't know if it's doing the right thing. And this is where the players come in. The players have to guide the decisions the AI confronts. So it's going to have problems that it needs to deal with, and the players are looked to as sort of a guiding light for this particular AI. Which, of course, when you have that, well, you have to have multiple endings. So we did. All right, so how did this game function? Let's get into it. So we have the theme, we have the sort of narrative wrapper about what we did. So how did players actually engage with this? Well, what we did is we created a hub. The hub is where everything began and everything ended. So we had a series of teams. They'd form a team. They'd have their members in there. They'd all get access to the hub. At the hub, they'd have a list of what we call training subroutines and tasks. The training subroutines were challenges. These challenges are the big thing the players need to do. And as they went through them, you could see we had graphs on there that they would move around, look like there's progress going on, and so on. And the players would get everything they needed from this hub, which is the starting point and the end point to each challenge. So, what were the challenges about? Well, all of them had key things there. One, they were all open to players in the hub. Then we had them timed released. They all involve teamwork and communication. You could see the theme from earlier. They each have different steps you have to achieve to get through them, so it isn't just one thing and you do it. It's one thing leads to another thing, that leads to another thing, and then you're able to find success on the challenge paths. It was really hard for a single player to do an entire challenge path. Again, we want teamwork, so each challenge path requires multiple people working on it. Each one would accelerate the story a bit, and of course they would explore issues about global food production and resource usage, and how the AI could influence that for better or for worse, depending on the player's perspective. And then at the end of each challenge path, we gave them what we would call an uncomfortable question. And our uncomfortable questions would be questions that the correct answer wasn't obvious. So it'd be very difficult, which one do we pick here? And the fun thing about all this is we have all this stuff going on, and we were worried players would be a little like, what's happening here? They figured it out. And it took a little bit for some teams, but then once teams got it, they clicked. That every single step involved a puzzle or a challenge that had them thinking in ways they didn't really expect going into it. So let's go into these challenge paths themselves. So we started with a tutorial, very simply called Hello World. Those of you who've done some coding would recognize the Hello World phrase, and so that's where we start from. This is our tutorial. So we gave the players reports about the AI and how well it was behaving or not, and they had to figure out what was going on, what cities are being impacted by this, and they'd be given an image of the city. So you could sort of, those of you who know what the city is would be like, oh, obviously that's that city. Then they would input what the city is with some additional information, and then once they got that, they would get what we refer to as a code. They would then submit the code back at the hub, and that would allow them to say, we've completed Hello World, time to move on to other challenges. And the other challenges would all open up after this. So this sort of trained them to say, you're going to get something. You're not really going to know what you're going to do with it. You're going to figure it out. And then what you're going to do is take whatever information you get from that and then submit it back into the hub to find success. That's what they did, which opened them up to a different game, a different challenge, I should say. But started with a game built in Unity, which we'll talk about a bit more later, how we actually built this stuff. We had them play a game about farming where they had to manage a farm and make sure that they're, doing the right crop rotation, getting, the right sales at the right price, planting, and so on. And way we incorporated climate change into this was to be climate change events, which would hurt your crops. So if you had monoculture, you wouldn't succeed in the game. So you had to use a diversity of crops to find success. That website's still up, by the way. You'd explore this website called Phaser, and when you got there, it would look like a normal NGO website. Nothing special about it, harkening back to the classic ARGs. You would then explore the site, and you'd realize there's a bunch of little activities you do there. And if you did all the activities, they'd give you a letter, and then you put the letters together. That gets you the code. These activities, again, we'll talk about those a bit later into the building process. So you submit the code from the protein challenge, you move on. We got the food waste one, which started with press releases. And other various reports. So we had bloggers and stuff saying, hey, this company, something weird's going on. Then we had the players go to this company called Modera Food Co., which they would then have to figure out what's going on here, get into the investor relations page. Oh, it's password protected. How do you get in there? Well, what you do is you go to the CTO's blog and figure out what their how to reset their password by identifying their child's name, their dog's name, etc. And then you crack a code. You then get into this secret area about the site where they're running a simulation to figure out how best to run the world's food sources. And then as the players went through this game, they would figure out what is good or bad actions to take. They would then have to decide how we deal with this one in particular was with food waste. And so the idea here was the AI wanted to basically make Soylent Green and feed people waste food because it still had calories. So people need calories, right? And so the AI just thought, give them calories. So anyways, they complete that, they submit the code, they move on to the next one. And this was the final big challenge. We called this one production. They had to investigate the company that built the Fuller AI called Neutron. And at Neutron, they discovered that a particular lead AI developer has gone AWOL, left the company, and they left to leave a life of poetry. And so you go and you find out where they're doing this, and they have recordings about them reading the poetry online. You then read their poetry to discover that there is a secret mini game about replacing farmers with drones. And then you have to then play this game about managing a farm using drones, which then led people to all this user-generated content that we put on YouTube around reviewing food that then would reveal final series of letters that would be the submission. So you can see there's multiple steps. And of course, when there's multiple steps like this in any sort of challenge, you have to think, will the players get it? Does it make sense? Well, we're lucky. Players loved it. They really, really liked it. And it worked out really, really well. So we're pretty proud of this, and this is why we feel like it's worth sharing what we did and how we made it. And this is how we made it. So, by the way, if there are questions about the game, I'll stick around afterwards for those. So, how do we make it? Well, of course, we have to use technology. That's the world we find ourselves in. So we use Twine, and this audience knows Twine. I'm a big fan of Twine, and it was really, really handy to use. It allowed us to do really quick iteration, really fast development. But you know this, okay? So Twine, great, love it. Could we have used other tools? Absolutely. But Twine was the interactive fiction tool of choice because that's what I am most familiar with. So the hub itself. Well, this was custom built. And of course, we were using Microsoft Power Apps. And you can understand why we would use that. And it was really handy. There was quite a few things we liked about this. One is we didn't have to have any access to player data whatsoever. All of that was handled on their servers using their accounts. We never had to touch it. That is beautiful because we didn't want to. We are privacy fans. We didn't want to just harvest all the data from all these people for really no good reason. So we connected this to them, and they had us. They provided with us a expert on Power Apps who did really, really good work. We use Unity. And hosted everything in WebGL, so we never pushed anything to mobile. We didn't do any desktop games. We did purely everything into WebGL because, again, international audience. We don't know what sort of computers they had. We know they have laptops or desktops, and we know they'd be playing on potentially multi-monitor setups as well because this is what they needed for work. So we were confident that everyone would be in front of their computers using this. There were, of course, people who were on their mobiles that did switch to for certain activities onto their desktop. But because this is all web, they could just copy and paste the URLs to wherever they needed to be using whatever system they wanted. The Unity games themselves we hosted on our own servers. We didn't host them on itch, that was for a variety of reasons. If we hosted them elsewhere, they'd be easy for people to get, and a little too open to the public. We wanted to control where people were. And of course, to speed things up, we made extensive use of the asset store and similar services. It just makes life so much easier. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. I'm a big fan of repurposing things. I'm a big fan of that. Okay, so that was part of our modern solutions. So what else did we do? We used a lot of websites. We had phaser.org. We had a bunch of them. We had Modera Foods. A lot of the simple sites that were just static content that we didn't really need to worry too much about, we just used Squarespace, right? We use WordPress, though, for the complex stuff. So WordPress, I'm a big fan of that. I've been using it since, oh my gosh, for too long, but maybe not long enough. And we were able to do a lot with that because we use a lot of plugins. H5P, total gem. I didn't know it existed until we started working on this game. And it is just wonderful to use for little puzzles and little challenges. And a lot of people could generate content for that very quickly. It's fantastic. We use contact forms as well. So we had a series of things called tasks for the players to do, which were not part of the challenge path. They were additional content. And we'd have things like, submit your own poetry through a contact form or complete a bunch of CAPTCHAs. So what we did is we took CAPTCHA spam protection and turned it into a task and had players complete CAPTCHAs. Why? Well, the funny thing is, I find it hilarious because players would spend they do 5 CAPTCHAs, and each time would give them a little bit of information. But we'd also say, this is a waste of your time every single time they did it. And some players were like, no way, I'm going to get through this. And then one team member would just be consumed with filling out useless activities. All right, we also use voicemail plugin as well, so people could leave messages. A few people did, but we just deleted them. I didn't want to hang on to that stuff. All right. We also, of course, hosted our own custom assets. We had a lot of PDFs created, like that first challenge with the cities. Those were just PDFs because this was run over Microsoft Teams. So making sure that we were able to send stuff out easily was really helpful. Of course, they were hosted online, but we could also then have people share them as files inside of their own chats. Made it so easy to do and means that moving forward, we'll have the ability to do this in hybrid. Of course, we use videos, use Adobe Premiere, and all that video stuff. We also made use of various online AI tools, like this person does not exist. The logo at the bottom of ComBees, that's our own hosting. We just made a site that hosts all of our content, most of the content for the game. We just called it ComBees because why not? And we just said it was made by AIs for AIs to fit in with the universe of the game. We had people work on this game as well, because you can't just do everything using AIs. So this is the core team. There's 4 of us on the core team. Game designer, that's me. I did a lot of the web stuff because I know WordPress, and did a high-level story concept with the producer, my business partner, who also took on a lot of the writing and the film production themselves as well. Both of us did interface with the client and all that stuff. Then we hired a graphic designer and a copywriter, and they did great work. And the copywriter actually became a performer in some of her videos because she is also a performer and amazing. Then we hired an extensive team of people who worked in Unity specifically. We hired a bunch of web specialists to do very particular things, which was great. We had a few general tech advisors. We had 4 actors, 1 video editor, maybe 2 actually. We might have had 2. And we had a whole team of testers. And then on the client, they actually brought forward the PowerUps coder, as I mentioned earlier, as well as we did testing with them and so forth. So what did we learn from this process? Well, I just went through all those people. There are too many of them. You can make this style of game with less people, and you can do it lower tech. Okay, that's totally possible, totally achievable, and moving forward, we'd like to do that as well. One thing we'd like to do is lower that facilitation to player ratio. So having too many, having a lot of facilitators is great, but sometimes it's not the best use of resources. So we wanted to make it easier on the facilitators moving forward. One thing we also found was that despite all of this, our client was great. They were really fast in making creative decisions. Sometimes you get clients that are really slow at that, but these are really responsive clients. They knew what they wanted, how they wanted it done. Absolutely fantastic. So I just want to celebrate that. One thing we also did was just have too many puzzles. It's always hard to do this right. Any game designer knows that it is difficult to get the correct number of puzzles and activities in a room off the top. You just have to keep modifying that. We had challenge paths, which we talked about, and then I've talked a little bit about the tasks, like the capture thing. So we, moving forward, to probably get rid of tasks, never do those. We found players didn't really engage with them. They were kind of fun and delightful, but the value add was minimal to the effort we put in. But what we did like, and we do want to continue celebrating, is that these are easy wins. And people love easy wins, particularly on big teams. And that way people feel included and they are making a difference. And that's essential. So that attitude we still want to keep forward, but not maybe as many as we had in this particular game. Videos. Videos are always complicated. They take a lot of time to produce. You have to have them done before the game itself. In our case, we crowdsourced from the potential players video content, and that got them into the game a bit more, and then they were rewarded when they're like, hey, that's my video, now repurposed in an entirely different way by this AI-themed game. So that was really nice, but they're also time-consuming for players. To watch a video takes time away from engaging in the activities that they want to engage in. So that's just something we have to be conscious of. Intro videos, outro videos, love them, but videos interspersed throughout, not everybody watches them, and sometimes they like to watch them at like 1.5 speed and so on. So what we also found is people weren't as interested in them as we had originally projected. So we learned from that. Big thing here, though, is not enough automation. And not having enough automation was really our pain point, and we have focused now on creating an app. We now have a dedicated app to help with this process. So that the screen behind me here is a facilitator screen, and you can actually see where players need help and where they are in their progress. So what we could have done on our end for this game in particular was use more AI-based tools and a lot more text shortcuts to get things out there. Again, I'm a fan of using the asset store. We use it a lot. I think we did really well there. But I think in other areas we could have done similar to speed things up. So yeah, as I said, we now have a tool for this. It allows us as a team to make these games a lot faster. Now it runs on people's mobiles, and we are able to do a large variety of activities with the players and still do things like have external websites and all that really nice touches to stuff. So that's what we learned, and that's what we did. Happy to answer more questions in the Q&A after. So, told you a bit about what we do at Wero, what the game was about, what the game was really about, and then what we learned from that process. And if you're curious, parts of it are still online. NeutronAI.net, Modera Foods, Possibilities.com. And if you want to go straight to the Twine game, it's embedded at combees.com/SEDC. So thank you very much for listening to us. Of course, get in touch if you'd like. I'll be sticking around for the Q&A. Thank you for listening. Hope you found this interesting, if not slightly entertaining. Have a great rest of NarraScope.